Hello and welcome to Global News Factory. I'm your host, Vikrant. We're covering three topics today. First, Hungary's Viktor Orbán is launching a new EU within the EU. Orbán is assembling all sovereign states of EU under one roof, and his target is Brussels and the EU Queen, Ursula von der Leyen. Next, we talk about EU's new loot policy. Nations that don't help EU steal Russia's assets will now have to pay from their own budgets. We talk about EU's new blackmail policy. And in the end, we discuss how India and Russia have joined hands to produce a Boeing-killer passenger jet. That is the most interesting development of the day. So, let's begin. Viktor Orbán is building a new mini EU inside the EU. Think of it like a clubhouse with its own rules. He wants only sovereign members, no bossy Brussels, no finger-wagging lectures, just countries that say, we decide. Politico says Hungary is teaming up with Czechia and Slovakia, three neighbors, one plan, a little triangle inside a big circle. Orbán wants to work with Andrej Babiš in Czechia, whose party just won. He also wants Slovakia's leader, Robert Fico. Before big EU meetings, they will sit together, drink coffee, and say, okay, what is our move? It is like forming a study group before the exam. The exam here is EU. So why does this matter? Because this trio can slow the EU's money and weapons for Ukraine. Their line is simple: this war is not the EU's war. They add, why should EU families pay for it? That is a punch straight at Brussels' wallet. Stop burning our money to look brave is what they are saying. Mini clubs are not new. 10 years ago, during the migrant crisis, Hungary, Czechia, Slovakia, and Poland, they formed the Visegrad 4. They pushed for strong borders. They pushed for pro-family policies. It annoyed the EU elites big time. It also worked. When the gate is open, the fence is useless, right? Now Orbán wants a Visegrad 3. Smaller team, same mood. The goal? Block anti-Europe policies made in the name of Europe. He is basically saying Europe is not Brussels, Europe is people. Now, I just hope Serbia to join this group. It is a golden chance for Alexander Vučić to show his spine and stand for his people. Anyway, let's go back to Hungary. Orbán also wants more sway in the European Council. The big prize on the table is Ursula von der Leyen's chair. Unseat the Queen and the board changes. Orbán's party sits with the right-wing Patriots for Europe. This is the group in European Council. They are shopping for new friends. They want to pull in members from the European conservatives and reformists, maybe also from the Europe of Sovereign Nations group. If they stitch enough threads, they get a new flag. So here is a spicy part. Orbán's people hope the big center-right group, the European People's Party, will soon turn on Ursula. If that happens, the centrist majority breaks like cheap glass. No majority, no magic. Suddenly, deals die, budgets stall, Brussels gets a migraine. Why is Orbán doing this now? Two reasons. One, he loves a fight with EU warlords. And two, he faces an election next year. He says Ukraine and the EU are teaming up to push him out. So he is doing what the fighters do. If they bring friends, I bring a gang. Simple math. And by the way, pressure is not just from Brussels, it is also from Washington. The message: stop buying Russian oil. The US ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker, told Fox News that Hungary and Slovakia must end those oil purchases. That is a hard ask. Turn off cheap oil, turn on expensive problems. Orbán is expected to meet Trump in Washington soon. You can guess the topic: pipelines, sanctions, prices, votes. 4 words, one headache. Meanwhile, EU's pro-war policy has punched ordinary people in the pocket. Energy bills exploded, factories struggled, groceries got angry price tags, politicians gave speeches, families paid bills. So this new mini alliance is not just a political toy, it's a brake pedal. It says slow down, think, count. If it holds, it would be a big win for you, EU taxpayers. If it grows, Brussels' power gets trimmed. But if it fails, nothing changes except more speeches and more pain. In a Europe full of noise, this trio is speaking in short sentences: our borders, our money, and our choice. And that, my friends, is a language everyone understands. That is a language of common sense. Moving on, seize Russia's cash or pay up. That is the message from Brussels. No mask, no makeup, just a threat in a suit. The unelected EU Commission is not asking, it is ordering, help us grab Russia's money or open your own wallet. That is extortion. Behind closed doors, something ugly is happening, a quiet power grab, a pressure cooker aimed at EU member states. Reports now show how the European Commission has turned frozen Russian assets into a weapon. Not just to feed Kiev's machine, but to bully any EU country that says no. Rule of law? More like rule of force, rule of blackmail. The logic here is simple and cruel. If Belgium, Austria, or Hungary won't break international law and take Russia's sovereign funds, then they must pay instead. New Eurobonds, share debt worth 140 billion euros, or a green light for state piracy. Pick your poison. This is mafia logic wrapped in a blue flag with yellow stars. Many EU leaders never voted for this war fever. Many never agreed to looting a country's reserves. They were not elected to rubber stamp a proxy fight, but now the order is clear: break the law or break your budget. Choose. Belgium is pushing back. They fear lawsuits, they fear blowback, they fear their name turning toxic if they smash treaties like the 1989 Russia-Belgium Investment Pact. But the Commission treats Belgium sovereignty like a speed bump. One EU official even bragged, I'm quoting from Politico, you offer people something they don't want, so they accept the lesser option. That is not negotiation, that is hostage taking. We always hear this slogan from the EU, from Brussels: Russia deserves this. But even EU legal experts warn this opens a door you can never close. If you can seize one nation's reserves today, no nation reserves are safe tomorrow. Yet, Brussels charges ahead, not for law, not even for Ukraine's real safety. They need to save face. They promised a Russian collapse, they got a long, brutal grinder. Now they need fresh cash to keep the circus going. So the threats grow louder. If you won't rob Russia, you will pay instead. Why push so hard? Because for the Commission, backing down means admitting the proxy plan failed. Pride is on the line, power is on the line, their careers are on the line. When the narrative is sinking, the first thing they throw overboard is the law. So here are the choices. Option A, you loot Russia, hit a nuclear power's sovereign wealth, and invite years of lawsuits and revenge. Option B, issue Eurobonds, pile up 140 billion euro debt, share debt, and blow up politics at home. Again, pick your poison. Moving on, bold move, clean message. This is our next story. India, or I should say India and Russia, they just delivered a big blow to Boeing and Airbus. So here is the story in plain words. India's state-owned HAL has signed an MOU with Russia's United Aircraft Corporation, or the UAC, to build the SJ-100 passenger jet in India. Signed in Moscow, 4 Indian customers First time, India will produce a commercial passenger aircraft like this at home. That is not small news, that is tectonic. Now, the interesting part here is the Russian firm, the UAC, it is under American, European, and the UK sanctions. India could not care less. Delhi still shook hands. That is, India saying, we decide our supply chains, not policymakers in Washington or Brussels or London. So, what is this SJ100? Think of it as a 100-seater short haul workhorse, twin engine, narrow body, a regional jet to connect Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities of India without begging Boeing or Airbus for slots or parts. Russia has been Russifying this jet. It means swapping out Western components for local ones. So the platform is designed to dodge sanctions and to dodge all threats and all choke points. Why this hurts Boeing and Airbus right now? Because India's regional market is hungry, it is vast. HAL itself is saying India will need 200 plus jets of this kind, of this size, over the next decade. That is just the domestic part, not even counting the international market. If even a solid chunk of that pie goes to HAL UAC line, that is billions that won't land in Seattle. That is, the SJ100 will take off at the expense of Boeing and Airbus. If you zoom out, Boeing's own forecast says India and South Asia will add roughly 2,800 aircraft in 20 years. That is the mega market Airbus and Boeing banked on. But if India localizes even the regional tier, the Western duopoly loses its easiest entry point. So today's 100-seater becomes tomorrow's 180-seater. That is how this partnership will evolve in coming years. By doing this deal, India is de-risking itself from sanctions theater. By choosing a sanctioned partner and still moving ahead, Delhi signals it won't let someone else's blacklist decide its runways. That message will echo in other sectors as well: engines, avionics, even payments. So, my friends, India did not just buy a jet, India bought freedom to choose, and in aviation, that is priceless. And that is all for now. Thank you very much for joining. You are watching GNF.